Hello, hello. Welcome to Actors Anonymous Podcast. I am your host, Wesam Quiche. Co-hosting with me today is someone brand new to the co-hosting seat.
To the co-hosting, yeah.
If you recognize her angelic voice, it's because she was a guest on our show, Cheryl Texiera.
What? Yeah, you got it.
I was so nervous saying it. Texiera.
You're like, if I finish it quickly, I'll get it right.
Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, hell yeah. Thanks for having me.
Jordan is out and about of the studio today, so, we had to invite one of the best co-hosts ever back.
All right, just some fanciness. We're going to have some fun.
With us today is oh my gosh, your resume is pretty outstanding, I must say.
Thank you.
You're like, I know.
No, not at all. I pinched myself, trust me.
Jim Klock, actor, producer, Scream Queens, Confessions of a Bartender, The Astronaut Wives Club, True Detective, The Whole Truth, and on Funny or Die, Interrogations Gone Wrong, which we were just watching a clip with the Keanu Reeves one.
So funny.
Yeah.
That's great. Did you come up with that?
I did, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I created that a couple years ago, and I had started training with this incredible acting coach who's a very established actor director named Jack Plotnick.
Yeah.
And Jack, who's God bless him, he's opening on Broadway this week. His show's opening on Broadway.
Oh, nice.
Week.
What is it?
It is called The Disaster. Yeah.
Ooh.
So,
you gotta. Jack Plotnick is amazing.
Yeah, he really is. He's so I started training with him a couple years ago, and he kind of basically was able to. I had been working a little bit, but he, but he got me to kind of get rid of a lot of stuff I've picked up over the years. But anyways, one of the things in his class that we talk about, or in his talks, he doesn't really have an ongoing class, but if you go, is he says, one of the big problems for us as actors is we sit around waiting for someone to give us permission to act.
Yeah.
And he said there's, or we get into a class and we spend all of our life in class, and if you're in a result-oriented class, you'll stay in that class forever because you come back to get this approval from these teachers. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so he said, create, do something. And now at this point, I've been directing and creating, but it's a big difference to direct and produce a feature film. That's a year and a half of your life, right? Mm-hmm. But I have all this equipment in my house and all that, and I hear him say webisodes. Why not do, create something? So that's kind of how it started. I went home and I said, I've always wanted. I have my police background, and I love the ridiculousness of making fun of some of the stuff. So that's how it started with me and my buddy in my house and my studio, and
I love that.
I do too.
Just the idea of, hey, I have some free time. I have all this stuff. Why not? I don't think a lot of people are like this, but sometimes maybe established actors or people who've been working I don't want to I'm above that almost, they almost look down upon it for some reason. And to me, every time I've shot something on my own or, helped somebody else shoot something, I've learned something else, something new or something that got reminded, oh, that's right, that's why we do this, or, oh man, I could do this with this character. It's like a gym almost at its quote unquote worst. It's, it's just working out or, but that's amazing. I actually wanted to read this this Instagram post by Chris Pratt. We're all familiar with him.
Yeah, I saw it.
You know what I'm talking about.
I read it the other day. It's amazing.
Well, you just said something, like a year, half of your life, producing and directing, and people are like, holy crap, am I willing to sacrifice that much time for a feature film that I want to do? Mm-hmm. And so for those people, I'm going to read his Instagram post. By the way, he was up for something like almost 80 hours when he typed this. Have you read this, Cheryl?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
It's 3:20 a.m. I got picked up for work at 6:45 a.m. yesterday. I'm not good at math, especially after being up for approximately 61 hours, but I think I've been up for 77 hours. I did a table read for Guardians of the Galaxy 2 this morning, and then shot all day on Passengers, and just now wrapped some 144 hours later. Weirdly, both films, which I'll be shooting back-to-back, are being shot in Atlanta at Pinewood Studios. We have the best crew, total rock stars busting their asses, and the stuff we're shooting, my God, I can't wait for you to see it. I go back in about 8 hours to do more. I'm doing what I love. It doesn't feel like work, even though it is. I'm having fun. I'm overcome with joy and gratitude. I felt like posting this to say to anyone out there chasing your dream, 15 years ago, I felt the same passion I feel today, but I had very little opportunity. I had to hustle hard and go hungry. I had to eat sardines and figure out how to get gas money, and I never had a plan B. I never stopped believing. Ever. Don't give up. Don't give up. Apply constant pressure for as long as it takes. It will break before you do. Go get it.
Yeah, that's great.
Oh my gosh.
I love that.
It's amazing. We were even talking about it this morning before we came in the podcast.
Yep.
Our perspective on our lives as humans, as these creatives. I mean, we only see so far into the future. So sometimes we get caught up with what's, our problems that are happening right now. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to see the big picture of what might happen, in the coming future. And how do you stay on focus then? Or stay focused, excuse me, when you're doing like a feature film and you have to spend a year and a half working on it? How do you stay motivated to do it? How do you,
I've been very blessed to, my producing career kind of went a certain direction, and then by the grace of God, my acting career caught back up with it and stuff like that. So, I was always in a position where I was multitasking. I've never not been, and that comes from being a policeman. Even my last 2 years was working undercover narcotics, and that's all you're doing is multitasking. You have to manage your confidential informants. You have to manage new cases, ongoing cases, and stuff like that. So,
wait, I'm sorry, you were actually a police officer. Why am I just finding this out now? This is amazing. Okay, we'll go back to that. Continue.
I didn't think to put that in your resume, in your little bio.
So pretty much I've always done that. So when I got out here and really started doing it, so when I say a year and a half of my life, I'm still doing other things throughout that year and a half because I've always kind of not known anything other than managing those tasks.
Right.
The biggest thing about making feature films for me versus web series or creating your own content. In fact, I have a meeting at 1:00 today. I have a development meeting for my next web series today because it's an immediate, and that's what I love about it. Yeah. I shoot in interrogations. I write the very first episode. I send it over to a young guy that helps me from the sketch comedy world. He helps me kind of get in, Sean Spencer, and he's like a co-writer for me, and he cleans it up. And within a week, we've written it, shot it, and within another week, it's out to the world. It's 2 weeks. So you're talking about creating, and the biggest thing we have to be willing to do. There is no failure, right? There isn't, and you have to get rid of that. You have to get rid of, I don't read any reviews on any of it. I don't care, right? Because there's no failure to me. I'm doing it, and most of the people who are writing reviews are not doing it.
Yes.
It's like a process for you more than anything.
It's a process. You just said it. It's work. It's going to the gym. And I don't get caught up on the negative. If I have one that doesn't turn out as well, I know. I'm an artist. I understand. Then I try to look at it and I say, okay, well, where did I go wrong?
Right.
But I don't get focused on that. And even I just directed a movie, which was an extremely difficult process. We shot a feature in 10 days. I was all over the place before getting there, and it was an extremely difficult shoot with a lot of pressure and a lot on top of it. And I don't look at the negative. I look back and I say, okay, what did I do right? I was blessed to do it. I worked, I learned through it, and move on. But that's the difference. Are you going to get focused on the negative?
Right.
Are you going to get focused on what doesn't go wrong? Are you going to get focused on what job you don't have? Are you just going to do something? And for me, my entire life, what I have lacked in talent, what I have lacked, I have always made up for in effort because I've just chosen to do it. God gave us free will. Right. And by the grace of God, I had free will and chose to put my money into my career. I chose to make something, buy equipment, and do that. And I think that is what has separated me from a lot of people I started with in the career. As my career went on, is just the simple fact that when it was go out and drink, I went home and wrote. When it was put my money into a fancy car, I put my money into equipment. So when other people want to sit and throw stones or talk behind our back, they're behind us for a reason.
So I got a question for you then. There's a good saying I heard, it's easy to have faith and be positive when everything's going well, right? And you're financially stable. So what do you say to people out there, or what do you recommend for somebody who's having extreme financial hardship? They're in the bottom of the barrel, if you will. Do you still preach the same thing? Work, stay positive. I mean, it's kind of hard though whenever everything bad is happening around you. Do you have anything that kind of keeps you positive in those kind of situations?
Absolutely. And I think you get to choose your thoughts. That's the one thing we get to choose. We might not choose our circumstances sometimes, right? But we get to choose our thoughts. And I can remember going back to being a young policeman, then going into when I started teaching, at being an instructor. And there's a choice that happens a lot of times we teach us in police work is when you get shot, your first thought is, I'm going to die. I've been shot. Or your first thought is, I'm fine. I'm going to win this gun battle. It doesn't matter, right? And that's the difference of living and dying. So when you get into anything else you're doing in this world, you can look at your circumstances and say, wow, when I moved out here in 2005, I came out here, I left police work because my dad was sick. I was in debt from a feature film I had done with a buddy of mine in Springfield, Mass, that I put my money into. I was on a cop salary. So I came out here, I was in debt, and I worked every bodyguard job I could do for years, every job I could do. I traveled. I'd come home. I was working for on a contract during the week, and I'd pick up every bodyguard job. When I met Cheryl, they didn't know that every night after class, I was going to a bodyguard detail almost every night.
Wow.
I would get out of a workshop. Because I knew that money, what you're talking about, absolutely can be that thing you focus on that keeps you down.
Right.
It's a trap, right? It's a trap.
Right.
I don't have enough money to do this, so I have to work and spin wheels and all that. And the only thing I knew to do was I needed to attack that problem. But guess what I still did while I attacked that problem? I bought equipment and I shot. So I attacked both fronts. So my approach and what I would say to anyone is figure out what you need to do. It's okay. Address it. I'm in debt. Okay. Here's my debt ratio. I want to work and all that. But how can I do both and figure it out somehow? And you can. Yeah. And maybe it's get together with friends and just do improv. You can do it. You don't have to spend money. You don't have to necessarily. I'm not saying to everybody, look, I took a big leap of faith. I bought a lot of equipment. And I was super blessed to have my best friend and producing partner, Daryl Martinelli, who was a tech guy, and he took that side of the business. And I couldn't have done it without him. But we still made those right choices, And then I was blessed to have my background and career to take these jobs that I would get offered. I mean, the first time I went with a big actress on a movie, I mean, they pay you well, much more than I made as a policeman. So when I came out of that, I had some surplus, right? And I did want a new car. I've wanted a Cadillac Escalade for years, right? And I drove older cars and whatever I had until just this year and recently. And the only reason I have said Cadillac Escalade, thank you very much, Anna Anisimova and Peter Schaefer, is because they sold theirs to me and bought a brand new one. And they took great care of theirs. And for years I've been telling them, please sell me yours when you get it. But I waited. So just the choices, that's what I would say, is stay positive, but make good choices.
It's first off, I love your logical approach to this. It's like, okay, I can control my thoughts. Nobody else has control of those. I'm going to take control of that. That's one of the few things I have control of. And it's amazing. And we've preached it on the podcast before, but the way you think, it actually has a physical changes in your brain. Like it starts changing pathways and everything like that. And man, have you always, growing up, did you have people to instill this kind of stuff in you, or was it something you just kind of developed on your own or through the police force?
Books that you've read or anything
I never
like
read
that?
any book.
Really?
I'm one of 7. I have an amazing mom and dad. They've been married forever, 44 years now, 45 years. And so I had older sisters who were very good about playing with their little brother. And so we would always be doing something pretty creative and playing pretend. And then my baby sisters came along when I was 13, which kind of changed everything for me because now I went from being the baby to changing diapers and helping raise babies, because you're one of 7. But I just was always, and then my granddad, I just always had people around me that I know people say it all the time. They said I can do whatever I wanted to do. So, and I literally became a policeman because I loved him. I fell in love with the show NYPD Blue when I was in high school. And I thought that meant I wanted to be a policeman. It took me years to realize, actually, I wanted to be an actor. And I was just confused. But the thing is that my dad had raised me away. When I became a policeman, I was all in. And I wanted to be the best. you know? So I think it was just that, but no, I never read any books or anything. And then my faith, for sure, my faith. As I grew older in my faith and really understanding. And as a policeman, I saw two things happen. A lot of policemen, because you see the bad of the world, you see that, you run from faith. I didn't. I absolutely saw some of the worst part of society in the world, but I can assure you I saw many more blessings every day, and I saw more love and kindness and graciousness from people. And so my faith grew through that. So I think it was just a combination of things, you know.
Yeah.
And I've failed a lot, you know. It's
part of the process.
It's part of the process, yeah.
Yeah.
Outgrow people, you know. That's another big one. It's always hard. You just outgrow people, you know.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a new chapter. Like living out here, you know, I've been out here for a little over 6 years, and sometimes, I guess outgrow, or just, you know, your paths kind of just start, you know, fading away from each other. And at first, when it first starts happening to someone, I think sometimes you can take it personally, or like, oh man, like why is this happening, you know? And then I think it slowly starts unveiling itself to you why, and you guys just have different mindsets.
I still find it hard to let go of some people, just because, especially if I've invested time in the relationship, even though I know that I have outgrown them, I've noticed that. But there's one thing that you mentioned that I feel like is our biggest commodity, our most valuable commodity is time. And what you mentioned was that you would be working, you'd be working really long hours. And then when you came home, your downtime, you were writing. I feel like a lot of actors fall into the trap of, well, this is my off time. I was doing that side job, but now I get me time, and they kind of get into a trap of just kind of not really accomplishing and not creating their own work.
Well, yeah.
In that free time.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really easy to, you know, allow hobbies, you know, right, to get in the way of what we want to do. And what I notice really with super successful people is they don't have any hobbies. They have their goals, you know, and their goals is more important than sitting around. Like, I love football as much as the next guy, but I can assure you, if you call and offer me a role, even if it's on Super Bowl Sunday, well, guess what? I'll tape it, because I'm going to come prepared, because that's my work. You know what I mean? And that's the difference. And I think we outgrow people. Successful people hang out with successful people, and that's a fact. And we can both start here, but as we grow, and sometimes people say, oh, success changes people. Yeah, it does. It does, because it makes you work harder, and it makes you want to surround yourself with people who are willing to work harder, because there's a lot of talk in our town. And there is no small projects, just like there's no small parts. See, I don't go into anything. If you offer me something, I take that no different than if Warner Brothers calls and offers me a role. That is a real offer, no matter what the project is. And when I show up, I don't look at I'm helping someone right now do a 2-minute scene for their reel, a new actor. Okay. Happens to be a really great makeup artist. She worked from 2 movies for me.
Oh, nice.
And she asked me if I just read it. And then I read it and gave her some notes on the writing. And then she goes, well, would you be in it with me? Yeah, I'll be in it with you. And guess what? My approach to that is no different than if I'm showing up on Scream Queens. Like it or love it, that's the approach. And you can either be with me or you can get out of the way. And I'm to the point now at my age where I don't even care if I hurt your feelings. Because the only people I'm going to hurt their feelings are people that are not working at the level and are not selling out like I am.
But I mean, you're obviously still professional and courteous and all that stuff. And I totally get what you're saying. There are lots of time wasters out there, especially in LA. Yeah. And back to like immersing yourself in your craft and your business. I mean, we have to be realistic. If you're an actor listening, or if you want to do this for a living out here, you really have to devote so much time to this. You can't just do it like a couple hours a week and expect something. You might get lucky, but it's not long term at all.
Yeah, I think I'm always surprised as to how many people will move out here, thousands of miles away from their family, and will hang out and do nothing all day. And for me, I have such a strong relationship with my family that it's like constantly I would always say, why am I out here? Why am I so far away from the people that I love? If the reason is because of acting, it's almost like you better believe I'm doing something to nurture acting if I'm going to be so far away from that.
Yeah. I agree with that 100%.
It's easy to do nothing out here.
But
I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying, like, man, Netflix is great, and that is a black hole of
Facebook,
just being cozy on the couch and just watching Netflix all day long. No, but so you've got a wife, right?
I do.
You have a family?
I do have a family. And don't get me wrong, when I'm talking about not hurting feelings, or maybe I should say being unapologetic for how I'm going to work and approach my work.
Absolutely.
You're right. Being professional, I read something not long ago, is when I was working with Keanu in the movie before he had done the show. And I remember being so in awe with just, this guy's been a movie star for this many years, right?
Right.
And if you look at Keanu on set, he's a quiet guy. He's just quiet, right? But this guy comes in, he cares so much, he's prepared every day, and he had this blue collar approach that just blew me away.
See, I knew it.
Just blew me away.
I knew.
Right?
I got that vibe off him after watching him in this and seeing interviews with him and like seeing his stuff. I'm like, that guy seems like the most down to earth, hardworking dude.
And he doesn't. And, it's like, but if you see him, right, because he's quiet, that can come off a certain way. Or, people make judgments of us and all that type of thing all the time. But there is, expect me to show up prepared, gracious, with my talent in those orders. You know what I mean? And that's what I mean as far as like over time, I think, where I'm just not apologizing for how I work, my approach, and how much I love it. You know what I mean? And how I expect it to be done correctly, and how I expect it to be done. And when I show up on, any type of show, that is my mentality. We're at the Super Bowl every day. And if I show up and it's not the most, great situation, right? You're behind, whatever the case is that happens on movie, we got to get the job done. You know what I mean? And that's where I think over time I got a little bit of, I was so worried about other people's feelings. Oh, I want to, guess what?
Worried about other people's feelings in terms of what exactly?
It's such a fine line with artists, and when you're working with friends and you're working with people, is you get into this weird place where you want everyone to have a voice, and your approach is, I want everyone to have a voice, and then you end up in a situation where there's just not that place, right? And there needs to be one voice, or there needs to be decisions made. Mm-hmm. And there's things, or you get into a place where we say, hey, we're gonna start and develop something together. And we show up at my house, and on a Monday night we say, we're gonna break up the duties. Here's the duties. And on next Monday we're gonna come back, and we're going to see what everyone did. And if next Monday comes and only Cheryl and I have done what we left one, you're out. You're out. We can still be friends. If you want to be friends, that's fine. But as business people, we're out. And I wouldn't have done that years ago. I wouldn't have done that last year.
That's awesome.
That's something that's just...
What's really changed? Like, what made you kind of be... Because I love that about you. I love that you're so hardworking, and you do surround yourself with people who are also very hardworking and committed and dedicated. And how did you change? Like, what happened?
I think it was a combination of things. I think getting married was a big one. I think my wife is really super supportive, and she's a great listener, and she doesn't really know the business very much, but she's known me for 20 years, and she's seen me go through all these phases. So I think she's been a big help with that, just saying, hey, don't forget where you are. Don't forget how you became successful as a policeman. Don't forget what you've done right. And I have been a very giving guy, when it comes to putting friends and people in my movies and offering roles and stuff like that to people that I respect and like. And I think it's been just several things have happened to where I'm just now at a point where I got to step back and say, I made the right choices. And give myself, I don't want to take a lot of credit. I'm not going to sit here, God gave me some, like I said, he gave me some talent, introduced me with some great people. And I can give you a very specific story with Kate Beckinsale of this scenario of making the right choices. But now it's like I look at myself and I say, hold on, I made the right choices. See, I chose to do the work. I chose to do all these things to get me where I am.
Yeah.
I've earned it. And if you don't want to see that, if you think that somehow you've earned it or belong in a certain place, but you haven't put in the work and the time and energy, I just have less patience to be around it. And that's not for me to make you understand. If you don't understand it, then that's on you, right? So, because you can't buy your way in. You can't. You can't buy your way in and play producer director. You can't watch enough movies. Quentin Tarantino is a brilliant genius filmmaker, and he was a video store clerk that watched every movie in the world. And you know what he still did? He wrote the script. He started writing. Oh, yeah. He didn't talk about it. He didn't just say, I'm brilliant. I'm a brilliant writer. I'm a brilliant director. One day I'm going to be brilliant. Do you know what he did? He did something. Mm-hmm. And then he got better. And he got better and better and better and better. And he did it his way. And he's unapologetic about doing it his way.
Have you read Book of Five Rings?
I haven't.
What is it called? Of Five Rings?
Book of Five Rings by Musashi?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So you need to get this book.
Okay.
Because there are universal truths in it. Okay, first off, it's written by the greatest samurai that ever lived. He had over 60 life and death duels, and he won all of them since the age of 13. And then he spent, after a while, he just went out into the woods and was trying to figure out why he was so good at what he did. And he came out with this book. And there are universal truths in it that can be applied to business, acting, police work, everything. Everything. The way you're speaking about the way you approach your work, there are certain chapters in the book where it's lining up exactly the same, those same type of universal truths. The way you attack certain projects, the way you work with other people is exactly how he describes in this book. It's a very great book. You should check it out.
I will.
We should have coffee and,
I will.
and talk about it.
I'd love to. Mm-hmm. I'd love to.
We're going to take a quick break here in a little bit, but I love how you've set such a high bar for yourself. And to me, it's not a high bar. It's where it should be, if that makes any sense. Absolutely. And I'm sure it's the same for you. It's like, this is not like something going above and beyond. This is just baseline. And I just got cast in this TV show, which by the time this episode airs, it's already aired. It's called Steve the Intern. You can find
Congratulations. I just saw something about that the other day.
On Casting Breakdowns?
I can't remember where. Maybe in the trades or maybe on, I don't know, IMDb. Maybe I read it somewhere, but Steve the Intern. You're right. Maybe it was on the Casting Breakdowns.
Okay, yeah. So you should check that out. I think, I don't know where, you can find it on Periscope probably or somewhere. I'll tweet about it. Anyway, we were having like this table read, and after the table read, one of the actors was voicing his concern because it's all done in one shot, 25 minutes. And he was like, man, this is great. I just hope, the actors, we remember our lines and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah. Of course you'll remember your lines. What are you talking about? You're worried about the actors remember. He's like, no, of course, but like it's like one shot. It's 25 minutes. I'm like, yeah. Wait, what's the problem here? You're an actor. You should know your lines. Wait. And like he's like, no, I get that, but like it's all one shot. I'm like, no, I understand what you're saying, but that's the baseline. Like we shouldn't be worried about that. Everybody here is a professional.
Amen.
People have done like plays 3 hours long.
Yeah.
Like, I've done Hamlet before. You should know your lines. Like, people know that what is it? I went to London and saw King Lear. Yeah. Guy's like 3.5 hours of just talking. He's like he's not in only one scene he's not in. The rest of the time he's in. I'm like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. Don't worry.
And don't put the negative fear seed out there. You know what I mean? Don't even think you're going to fail.
So, no, I love that. I love how, to most people, maybe it might seem like you have these high bars of expectations, but I think to the hard workers out there, for me anyway, and I'm sure to Cheryl the same way, but I don't want to speak for you. I mean, you can say, but it's just baseline. These are baseline things.
Mm-hmm.
I agree 100%. Yep. I agree 100%. And I tell people all the time, don't applaud yourself for doing what you're supposed to do.
Amen.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Gosh, yes.
You know what I mean? And,
Jim.
And it's okay, like I said, to make mistakes and fail. You just want to fail forward. And I can say I was on this last film, from the time I found the script to in the can was 90 days through green light, right? And I bit off a little bit more than I could chew in the prep of it. So that was a situation now where I look back and I say, okay, where was the prep part of that wrong, right? But my baseline was still there, was get the job done. I'm in the fight now, just got to get the job done. Didn't go, when you, sometimes they're not going to go as well planned and things aren't going to happen and they're not going to be every movie's not going to be as fun, every shoot's not going to be as fun. But when your baseline is right there you just have to do it no matter what. Yep. You're going through hell, keep going, right?
Then, back to Book of Five Rings. the best fighters out there, well, two things. The best fighters in the world, because I have a lot of martial arts background, are the most calm people walking into the ring. You watch MMA at all?
I do.
Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
Okay. Great fighter, way too cocky for my taste. I know he's like trying to sell tickets and whatnot. That's fine. Just way too cocky for my taste. Decent fighter. Nothing above and beyond, in my opinion. You know who Fedor Emelianov is?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes! Somebody knows who this guy is!
Fedor is unbelievable. I watched Fedor fight many years ago when he was almost choked out, and Mark Coleman was almost choking him out, and it was an incredible fight. But go ahead, yes.
Oh my gosh. He walks into every fight like he's getting a haircut.
Yep.
Like, just, he's not like worried, he's not like he's just calm.
Yeah.
He could be punching somebody as hard as he can or taking a hit as hard as he can. He has this almost the same expression on his face.
Yeah.
Like you see it in his eyes like, okay. And so in Book of Five Rings, it talks about whenever you're fighting, you're not thinking about losing or winning. You're just thinking about that moment.
Yep.
Just fighting. And I'm like, it's such a weird concept to grasp, especially when you want to, like, let's say you're in an audition. You're like, okay, I'm going to book this. Or, oh my God, I'm not going to book this. No. That's not what you're supposed to be thinking about. Not booking it or unbooking it. Just living as that character in that moment.
That's right.
The fight.
That's exactly right.
Anyway, we'll be back. I want to hear some police stories. We have some detective work. Anyway, we'll be right back. Like crazy. We're back on. So, how long were you a police officer and undercover narcotics?
Well, I was a narcotics detective my last 2 years.
Last 2 years.
But just shy of 10 years full time, and I'm still part time. I've been part time for 10 years.
Yeah.
Since stayed part time.
You're still part-time?
I do.
So you go back home or you do it out here?
No, I go back Stafford County Sheriff's Office, Stafford, Virginia. One of my best friends in the world is Sheriff. Shout out, Sheriff Decatur. Yo.
Yeah, he's a follower on the podcast.
Yeah, he will be. He will be. Trust me. Him and his daughter, or his daughter Brittany, she runs my fan club.
Oh yeah, great job, Brittany.
I don't have a fan club, but she would run it if I did. So I go back and. That's where I was a detective at, so I just stayed there afterwards, and we were working on some really fun stuff to do together, and at the sheriff's office, where I'm going to mix the arts with law enforcement.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
It's called Operation Lead, and it's the Law Enforcement Artistic Division. So what I'm going to do is, I wrote this about a year ago, approached him with it, and he got really excited. So before I became a detective, I worked in community policing. I was actually a residential police officer in a neighborhood. I was the first Caucasian officer to live and work in an all African American community just outside of D.C., which was life-changing for me on many levels. And one of the things that I learned so much, and I had an African-American partner, Gerald Ford, who works with me on a lot of my movies now. He's still a policeman, but he produced Murder 11.
Did he?
Shout out to Gerald. But anyways, what Gerald taught me was I didn't want the job at first because I didn't think. I was like, man, I'm really setting myself up for failure. You know, there's a reason we haven't had a white officer do this, and I had a captain really believe in me, which I'll circle back to being surround ourselves with people that believe in us and our fans, not say it, action. And so this captain believed in me, and I went to work over there. And when I moved into this community, it was a really pretty violent community, and you know, Gerald took me to the side one day, and I said, Gerald, I'm going to piggyback. Gerald had been living in the sister projects for about 8 years at the time. I said, I just want to learn everything there is. And he said, you win the grandmas, you win the kids, you win the neighborhood. And that was the most truthful statement. You win the grandmas, you win the kids, and you'll win the neighborhood. It's not about your race. And what I learned quickly was rich and poor was a bigger divide than white and black. Okay? So what we do a lot of times, and now it's a topical subject because of what's going on at the Oscars, right?
Yeah.
We build basketball courts in the projects, low-income housing areas. We build playgrounds, and those playgrounds become babysitters to these kids. Go out there on the playground, right? So there is no arts. You think about people that are allowed to, that are blessed enough to be in a childhood, in a home, to pursue arts, whether it's music, acting, dancing. It's expensive, right? I mean, generally speaking, it's not cheap.
No.
So what I noticed through all these community projects, there was no arts. There was boxing and there was great programs. And I'm not knocking the athletic programs. It's a great way for these young men and women to get out of poverty and stuff, right? But that's a small amount. But there was no teaching. There was nobody saying, hey, you want to be a screenwriter? You want to be a director? You want to be an actor? You want to change things? You want to change this Oscar situation? I think Don Cheadle said it best. We need to have minorities making more movies. We need to be telling more stories. We need to have people, minorities in positions to direct and write and produce. So a year ago, I pitched the sheriff. I said, hey, I want to start this program, and I want to mirror community policing with the arts. And what I would like to do is I want you assign a deputy with me, and I'm going to teach acting, writing, and directing programs. Now, I'm not, really cool. And here's the approach. I'm not I'm an efficient director. Maybe very, there's work I'm proud of, but what I can really do is teach you how to be efficient. What I can really do is sit down and say, if you got to, I can show you how to get your script shootable, and I can show you the basic paint by numbers of how to direct. I don't need to be Spike Lee to teach these young kids. You know what I mean? Like if they get the bug and they just get enough information to start doing it, they'll go to Tisch, and then Spike Lee can teach them how to be the master of directing, right?
Yep.
But if they got that burning desire, maybe I can just teach them enough. I don't have some great desire to be an acting teacher, right? But I've absolutely been working enough that I can take a novice, because do you know what the definition of an expert in the court of law, if you become an expert witness, do you know what it is?
What is it?
You have to know more than the common person. So I absolutely know more than the common person when it comes to acting, producing, writing, and directing. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go but the idea is this: I'm going to have a policeman assigned with me. We're going to go around to the low-income housing areas, and we're going to say, hey, you can come to the sheriff's office, and we're teaching arts, and we'll see how many people sign up. And then the plan is I'm going to identify who's interested in what. It'll be a director, a writer, actor, who wants to really do what. And then through the class, we're going to end with a scene that is about law enforcement. They have to write something about law enforcement. It can be imagined, it can be real, it can be their thought of law enforcement, whether it's real or not. And that officer is going to be involved in the shooting and the acting. And we're going to shoot a short film that then is going to be turned into training films for everyone in the department. Because let me tell you, if an 11-year-old kid is afraid of law enforcement, it doesn't matter if that's factual or not. That's real fear to him. And if he's afraid of law enforcement because all the other people in his life have told him that, well, maybe if you show some young rookie officers or some people saying they watched this 2-minute video and it's touching and it hits their heart, and you're like, man, it ain't us against them. That little boy's legitimately afraid of this uniform.
Right.
He's legitimately afraid of what this badge stands, and that is a disgrace, because it is the most amazing job, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm a little swayed. It is the most amazing profession in the world. It is a selfless profession where less than 0.5% of American law enforcement is dirty. Think about that. Less than 0.5% of American law enforcement is dirty, is bad. It's a better ratio than the clergy. So,
sorry, I'm just curious, because I always love doing research on this kind of stuff. Is this an actual statistic from?
Yeah, there's a Paul Harvey. I believe it's Paul Harvey has a speech that you can look up where he talks. I don't know where that statistic's a few years old. That statistic, but that stuck with me as a young policeman. Right. Of the pride, but. Look, there's bad apples and everything. I'm not saying that. I'm not even like where'd you get that statistic? Yeah. I'm not like that at all. Yeah. I just like to know where I get even stuff I read online. It says statistics. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Let me do research on this statistics company. Because I think it's so important that we well inform ourselves on every subject, and in order to have a educated opinion. Oh gosh, I was just gonna comment on something you were saying, and I just totally forgot. Sorry, go ahead. I literally blanked out. So, anyways, my point was but that was Paul Harvey, who's a great newsman. If you can YouTube that. He talks about law enforcement, a great speech. But the idea is, right now, law enforcement's taking a big hit in American law enforcement, right? And so what is the idea, and when that happens, you can just become more divided. And now you got police officers feeling even more like it's just us and everybody's against us. And you have people outside of that don't understand the job, who think it's just them against us. And it's not meant to be that way. It wasn't created to be that way. The majority of police officers I have ever worked with, and I am a blessed guy. Let me just say, I was taught very well. I had amazing mentors that taught me how to do the job right. And I'm very grateful for that.
You got to be careful also. As a person nowadays, you have to be better educated. Everything you see on the media, man, it's sensationalized to a certain point. Go do research. Again, that's why the media thing. I'm very careful where I read what, especially with what's going on overseas and all this stuff. I'm not a conspiracy theorist guy, but whenever something big is on like CNN, it's always on the homepage for like a month or so. Just kind of see what's going on in Congress. You see what laws that's being slipped underneath certain stuff. I don't know. Some weird coincidences. That's all I'm going to say. But there is... my grandfather was a cop.
Where at?
Overseas. And I'll let you know where after the break.
Okay.
But he loved the job. I heard stories that, there were a couple of bad apples in the bunch that unfortunately... made everybody fear cops there too and think that, they're all just taking bribes and this kind of stuff. And I don't know, man, it is a selfless profession. And there was a part of me like growing up, like, I would love to be a cop someday, but man, it's, I don't, because of what's going on in the media, it just bothers me, because if that stuff is, really going on, obviously we want to put an end to it. I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm just kind of upset with that, with what's being shown out there all the time. And then good cops that are actually trying to do their best, they're getting criticized. They're being looked down upon. They're, people are scared of them. And I don't know. It's just a messy situation. I don't know how to solve it either.
I think it's what you were mentioning. It's a couple bad apples. And I'm not saying a couple. I am saying that yes, there is a significant number since the videos and whatnot, but it doesn't make every single person on every single task force bad. And I completely agree with you. It's an incredibly selfless profession. You're the one jumping in there to stop crime from happening. It's shocking to me that some people are attacking the person who's going after the guy with the gun, pointing at everyone, as opposed to maybe everybody jumping in to stop the person with the gun coming in general, if that even makes sense. I know a number of people who are police officers who are very close and very dear to me, and it's so disheartening whenever I see a new video post that's so, it's attacking the force, and it's attacking the people who are actually protecting us. And I'm not saying that everyone is an angel who has a badge, but come on, it's also not all bad.
Yeah.
And it's tough. I don't know.
It is. And hopefully with, the program with, that I would like to start is it's not just, it's introducing these kids that may not have an opportunity to be introduced to what we love to do and we get to do. But it's also introducing them to law enforcement really letting them meet a policewoman, letting them spend time with them, letting them see pictures of their family, right? You know what I mean? It's because that's not the thought. The thought is very few people think when they're dealing with a police officer, right? You got to remember, that's the worst thing in their life at that time when they call the police. They don't think, is this officer married? Does he have kids? Does he have children? That type of stuff. The thing about officer-involved shootings that most people don't understand is it's an educational thing. We have to educate the public on what it is. Most of the divide is they just don't understand. Why can't you just shoot them in the leg? Things like that, they don't know. But these are split-second decisions that are happening. Where if you're not proficient in your training, if you're not proficient with all the other weapons on yourself at that time, I'm an instructor in Krav Maga several years ago when I was out here. I went to school, but I had been a defensive tactics instructor.
I'm taking my first class Monday.
You'll love it. It's incredible.
Yeah.
But one of the things that always was important to me as a young police officer was being proficient with everything that was on my body, and closing my eyes and seeing it happen before it ever happened. You don't want to be surprised by anything, split second. And unfortunately, being in shape, there's a lot of factors that go into these things that people do not know. There's a big difference. If Cheryl and I are police officers together, okay? Mm-hmm. Here's two facts in life, right?
Right.
I can't have a baby, right? I can't. Baby can't come out of me.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Yes.
Right? I cannot deliver a child. God made me a man, and there's no way for me to deliver a child.
Have you seen Junior?
I haven't.
With
yes, with Arnold. Yes, I'm sorry. And second is Cheryl. How tall are you, Cheryl?
5'2".
5'2". I won't ask your weight because that's disrespectful. But Cheryl is in very good shape. So she's 5'2" and she's in very good shape. If I punch you in the face right now, or I punch you in the face, two different outcomes, most likely, right? Because that's how it's just different. I'm 6'4", 220 pounds, right? So, and I know the proper way to punch.
Yep. It's a good fighter weight,
right? So if I hit, and you have a background, so she has a right in her if she's arresting me, okay,
right.
She has a right to know what I can do to her. That in her education as a police officer, she knows that she doesn't want to take a punch from me, and she doesn't want to end up on the ground with me on top of her. Because guess what? There's a gun in every fight, no matter what. The police officer always has a gun, and he has to defend his gun. So most of the time, we're fighting one-handed. A lot of people don't know that. People don't think about that. Mm-hmm. There is a gun present in every encounter, at least one. Ours, right?
Gotcha.
So you have to protect that. Now she is arresting me. She knows she doesn't want me to punch her. She knows that that's a different thing because if I punch her, there's a very good chance she's going to go unconscious or lose consciousness. Then what happens? Now I've got her gun.
Right.
You get to go home to your husband?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And what are you thinking in that split second when I'm telling you I won't turn around and put my hands behind my back? You don't see a gun, and now I'm coming at you. Let's say I push you.
Yeah.
Let's just say I push you over top of your car. And in that split second, you're thinking, I want to see my husband. I want to see my mom. I want to see my dad in that split second. And this guy is coming at me, and he's angry, right? And you're reaching on your belt. That split second, though, you could die if I get a hold of you, if I get a hold of your gun.
Right.
And unless you educate people, they don't know. That's that thought process. That's real fear.
Yeah.
And she's allowed to use deadly force to make sure she goes home in that scenario. Now, she can try. She gets to her pepper spray. She can try. But let's say the pepper spray misses, only gets in half my eye, and now I got a hold of her throat, and I'm choking her. These are things to answer your question, it's education. We have to educate and communicate. And law enforcement doesn't do that very well. We're very private, very secretive. You have the bosses. Let me tell you, bosses of these major police departments are politicians. They are not cops. And that is a huge difference. That's no disrespect. There are some out there, but these major ones, they're politicians who have a different agenda than being on the street in the worst neighborhood in the city, protecting the grandmas and the kids.
Right.
Because you got to win the grandmas and the kids.
Well, we're almost out of time, but
I'm off base. Sorry.
No. These conversations, they go organically wherever they want to go. No, you said something to kind of wrap this up. There are bad apples in the clergy. There are bad people there. There are bad teachers there. There are bad teachers, just in general. All teachers are bad? No, of course not. And I think we need to start looking at stuff kind of like that. Like, okay, these people are bad. Everybody who's a teacher, that doesn't automatically make them bad. And it's such a simple thought that you would think that would happen. But for multiple reasons, people will start assuming that every single cop is bad, or every single teacher is bad, or every single priest is bad. So, yeah, you hit it on the head. But also, you said something earlier when you said surround yourself with your fans. And just to clarify, I think it's also important not to surround yourself with yes people just to kind of boost your ego, even when you're not doing something right. Would you agree? I do agree, but you need to. That's on us to identify those people. That's on us. We have to identify those people. But you
if you're not helping me move towards the finish line in the victory, what I mean by that is you definitely don't want yes people, because then you just end up with whatever you say. But you need to have people that understand when you make a mistake, they still love you. You understand? You got to make sure that your team is around you. Yes. So even if you make mistakes and you do that, they don't get short-sighted, okay? And they're only looking at the cake in front of them and they're forgetting the whole picture, because we're all going to have bad days and we're all going to make mistakes and we're all. But if you're surrounding yourself with winners, okay, with people who at all cost are going to be with you and go through this last movie I turned in, I changed the entire day because we had 70-degree weather in Atlantic City in December, right? And it had been bitterly cold out 2 nights before, and I didn't. So I went in and I changed the entire schedule, and I handed it to the UPM, and I said, I want to shoot all of the outside stuff tonight, and 12-hour day on a 10-day shoot. And she looks at me, she says, okay, that's a 17-page day. I said, yep. She didn't argue. She didn't say, oh, you can't make a 17-page day. Mm-hmm. No. She looked at me and she said, that's a 17-page day. Yes, it is. I'm aware. Boom. And we went and did a 17-page day. Because her attitude was not we're going to forget a line. You see what I'm saying? Like that guy said to you, what if we forget our line?
I totally get it. And I know you have this. I just want to hear you say it out loud, because you have the right sense of awareness and the right sense of drive and passion and motivation. The tools that you have, I feel, with the wrong person can blind them, if that makes any sense at all. And what I'm saying is, what you're saying, if somebody isn't self-aware and they're like, oh, I want to surround myself with my fans or with people who will make me feel good. That's also can be. Do you see the opposite end of that? I just want to make sure people have that sense of awareness that you have, and that motivation and the reason why you're doing it, because otherwise it's a slippery slope. You either go one side of the fence or the other.
Yeah, no, and I've seen those yes people around major movie stars. Like I've been blessed to be on both sides, working as security before I got into it. And you see those people that do get around certain people, and that's all they're there for. And you're right, it's a very good question. But for me, what I'm talking about, when I say fans, I'm saying more like to the way of they're fans of you as a person and where we're going together. So they see the whole picture, versus it becoming I'm a fan for you when you can do something for me.
Right.
And when you can't do anything for me, or I don't like how you're not doing something for me, that I'm no longer a fan of you.
Right.
And those are the people that are not good. And I can tell you the best people in the world, to use a sports analogy, do you think Peyton Manning has anyone in his circle that brings him down? I ask you both. Do you think?
Right, no.
Absolutely not.
I don't know about his wife, so kidding. That got way too personal.
But that's what I'm talking about with fans, is make sure you have people in the long haul for you. Make sure you have people that see where you're headed, and that the little bumps in the roads aren't going to make them run away.
No, absolutely right. No, I like hearing our guests clarify things, because things can get misinterpreted for somebody, and then it harms them. But no. Jim, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Sure, thanks. I'm sorry we got off track off movie stuff and TV stuff.
This was fantastic. I loved it.
This is awesome, man. We got to have you back on sometime.
Would love to. Thanks for having me, guys. It was great seeing little Tex. I nickname everybody. I can't say Texera. I actually just said it right.
Hey!
Do I get a nickname?
D-Money.
D-Money. I like that.
It's pretty good.
Is that somebody you arrested in the past? One of the narcotics people?
I don't think I ever arrested anyone named D-Money.
All right, there you go.
So you're safe.
For now. No. What does that mean?
Enjoy
Jim,
Krav Maga training.
Right? No, I will. I'm looking forward to it. I'm actually been taking Wing Chun for a while now, and I love it. We've been doing some Chin Woo and then Tai Chi to incorporate into it.
Goodness.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with that. Keanu was big into Tai Chi. He directed a movie about that. I think it's called Man of Tai Chi. Really good. It was a really good movie. You got to check it out. Yeah. And you need and I need an email of those 2 books you told me to read.
Oh, yeah, and I'd love to have coffee, actually, and talk about those things, because I love discussing those in depth. Cheryl. I'm just pointing at Cheryl. She was like, he does.
He does.
Jim, if people want to find you on the interweb, what's your Twitter name?
Jim D. Klock.
Thank you.
There you go.
Jim D. Klock.
Yeah,
right.
I believe it's Jim D. Klock, right?
Mm-hmm,
if it's not, just look up Jim Klock.
Hold on, let me see. I can tell you right now.
And do you have a website as well for if people want to see your...
It might just be just Jim Klock.
You know what? I don't, and I'm not great at the social media, so it is at Jim D. Klock. You were correct.
Ooh.
Nice. And then people can find your interrogations gone wrong on Funny or Die. They're great. You should check them out.
Hilarious.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we have a new season starting this year, so we're very excited. I think Little Tex is going to come do one. We've been talking
Don't
about
say
getting
that
her.
if you don't mean it.
Oh, I mean it. We've been talking
okay.
about it. We're trying to mix it up a little bit this year. We're doing one, and then I'm starting on another one. So we'll see.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
And Little Tex, what's going on with you? Before we go? Can you just tell me real quick? Give me something. What's new?
Well, I've just got the Confessions of a Bartender happening, which is just wrapped. So that's really fun stuff.
I got a great
catch
email.
up.
I got a great email from that. Somebody saw one of those. Yeah, I did. It was really nice.
Oh,
And you got
You're
a
hilarious.
business of acting course, right?
I do in San Francisco, February 20th. Yeah, check it out.
People can sign up at www.Cheryl Texiera.
Okay.
Right? That was right.
It is. But
I'm getting nervous
I
saying
think
it now.
you're making the Sarah very fancy to hide. Sarah.com.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks for co-hosting with me this week.
Yeah. Hey, man. Thanks for having me. I literally thought you were saying thank you to Jim again. So I was going to say, thanks, man. Thanks for having me. It's always so fun with you.
But no, thanks, Jim, again for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. It was
Wealth of
great seeing you
knowledge,
guys.
very motivating. Cheryl, if people want to find you on the interweb, Twitter.
You could Cheryl Texiera.
Awesome.
Texiera.
Nicole, thanks for coming in today. Sound engineering.
Thanks, Nicole.
You can find her at NikkiFut92. She's great. And thanks to all of our listeners. You can find me at Wesam Quiche. You can check it out. Check out my new TV show, Steve the Intern, on Periscope, and I'll tweet out a link of where you can watch the videos after it airs. It's a great TV show. You can check out Awkward coming back too, February, I believe, or March. I'm not really sure, but we'll tweet out more links about that as well. You can find our website, actorsanonymouspodcast.com. Hit us up with your questions. We'd love to hear from you, as always. And always remember to listen, think, and then talk.